Daniel Amati sat by the roadside with his back against a dusty wall. His clothes were old and faded, his slippers worn down, and a small plastic bowl rested in front of him with a few coins inside. "Thank you," he said softly each time someone dropped something. "God bless you. Good people are rewarded." Many people did not stop. Some walked past him quickly, pretending not to see him. Some looked at him with open disgust as if his suffering was an inconvenience. A few shook their heads and muttered under their breath. Daniel did not argue, he did not complain, he simply kept his voice gentle and steady. "Please help me with food money," he said quietly. "Thank you, good people are rewarded." A woman dropped a small coin without looking at his face. Another man waved him away like he was chasing a fly. The humiliation was heavy, but Daniel carried it like a man who had a reason for everything. A short distance away, a group of young women slowed down, their laughter fattening it. "Surprise, wait," a female voice said sharply. "Is that Daniel Amati?" The group stopped walking and looked again. "No," another girl said, squinting. "It can't be him." But it was. Cynthia Bello stepped forward, her eyes widening as she stared at him. "It's really him," she said, almost like she couldn't believe her own mouth. "Daniel Amati," her friends gasped. "Our old classmate?" one asked. "The same Daniel from secondary school." Another one leaned in, her voice dropping into a whisper filled with shock and enjoyment at the same time. "How did he become a beggar?" Cynthia's lips curled in a small, cruel smile. "Life happened," she said, as if that answered everything. She folded her arms and kept staring at him like he was a sad joke. Jessica Ofer stood among them, and the moment she saw Daniel's face properly, her expression changed. She looked away fast as if his poverty could stain her. Someone noticed and nudged her. "Isn't that your ex-boyfriend?" the girl asked with a teasing tone. Jessica's face hardened instantly. "Please," she said coldly. "That thing, I don't know him." The others laughed. "But you dated him back then," another insisted. Jessica clicked her tongue and waved it off like it was nothing. "That was long ago," she snapped. "We broke up, I don't even remember him." They stood there watching Daniel like he was entertainment. Daniel noticed them. He recognized every face. He knew their names. He even remembered the way they used to greet him back then when his uniforms were still clean and his dreams were still loud. But he said nothing. He only lowered his eyes and spoke again, calm and polite as if their presence meant nothing to him. "Thank you, God bless you, good people are rewarded," Cynthia scoffed. "So embarrassing," she said. "Imagine acknowledging him." One of her friends looked around quickly, suddenly nervous. "What if someone sees us?" she asked. "People will think we are beggars like him." Cynthia's smile widened and she pulled out her phone. "Let me record this," she said, almost excited. "Nobody will believe it. The genius boy from our class is now a beggar." She raised the phone and zoomed in on Daniel. "Look at him," she whispered with laughter. "Daniel Amati begging." Jessica turned her face away completely. "I don't want him recognizing me," she said. "Let's go. It's awkward." They began to walk off, still laughing, still shaking their heads. "Thank God we didn't greet him," one of them said. "I don't want anyone knowing we were once his classmates." Their voices faded as they disappeared into the crowd, leaving behind only the sound of moving cars and footsteps that did not care. Daniel remained where he was. He looked into his bowl, then looked back at the road. His face showed no anger, no shame, no desperation, only calm. "Thank you," he said again to whoever would listen. "Good people are rewarded." This time, his voice carried something deeper than begging. It carried certainty, like a man who knew that what people saw was not the full story. Daniel remained where he was after the girls disappeared into the crowd. He was a handsome man in his late 20s, tall, well-built, with sharp eyes and calm features that even the disguise of poverty could not completely hide. Beneath the torn clothes and worn slippers was a man who owned billions of naira, the chairman of Dream Chasing Group, one of the biggest companies in the country. Yet very few people knew this. Daniel had always lived quietly, avoiding the spotlight, allowing hired executives and public faces to take credit while he stayed in the background. Power to him was never something to shout about. Now he sat on the roadside like a nobody, staring at the bowl in front of him. The air still carried the girls' laughter, but it no longer touched him. "Thank you," he said softly, as another passer-by dropped a coin without looking at his face. "Good people are rewarded." His voice sounded humble, but there was something steady underneath it, like a man who was fully in control of where he was and why he was there. A black car that had been parked a short distance away rolled closer and stopped quietly. The door opened and a man stepped out in a clean suit, his shoes polished, his posture respectful. He did not approach Daniel the way one would approach a beggar. He walked with care, with restraint, like someone approaching authority. When he reached Daniel, he lowered his head slightly. Chairman, Daniel did not look surprised. He only nodded once. "The begging period is complete," the man said in a low voice. "1 full month, just as you instructed." He glanced at the screen in his hand. "A total of 100 people donated to your bowl during the month." Daniel Unk's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in thought. "Only 100, he said quietly, as if he was not counting numbers but hearts. "Yes, Chairman," the assistant replied. "Their identities have all been verified." Daniel tapped his fingers lightly against his knee. "Pull out their full details," he said. "Names, contacts, background, struggles. I want to know who they are." "Yes, Chairman, prepare the support plan," Daniel added. The assistant hesitated briefly. "How large should the support be, sir?" Daniel answered without pause. "Each of them must receive enough to change their destiny, not token help, real support." The assistant nodded, understanding the weight behind the words. Daniel's voice softened, but his meaning became heavier. "Good people deserve good rewards," he said calmly. "Anyone who can show kindness to someone they believe is nothing has something rare inside them. Those are the people we invest in." The assistant nodded again, clearly moved. Then he remembered his duty. "Chairman, the annual Wealth Summit has begun. The guests are already arriving. Should we return to the company now so you can host it?" Daniel stood up slowly, lifting the bowl and looking at the coins inside, not as money but as proof. "You go first," he said. "I'll come later." "Yes, Chairman." The assistant stepped back and returned to the car. Daniel turned and began to walk away from the wall like a man leaving a role he had played long enough. He had not gone far when a female voice stopped him. "Daniel." He turned. A young woman stood a few steps away, holding her handbag close to her side. Her eyes were wide with shock, moving between his face and his appearance, as if she was struggling to understand what she was seeing. She was beautiful in a quiet, natural way, with calm features and gentle eyes that carried curiosity more than judgment. Her name was Felicia Idme. They had gone to the same school years ago, but they were never close. They had never really spoken beyond passing greetings. Daniel had always been busy with his own life, and Felicia had kept to herself. Still, he remembered her. She had always stood out without trying. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low and confused. "Why are you like this?" Daniel looked at her steadily. "I was called to work at Dream Chasing Group," Felicia continued quickly as if she needed to explain herself. "They told me to report immediately. Then I saw you and I couldn't believe it." She paused, then asked softly, "Daniel, why are you begging? You used to do business. People said you were trying to build something." Daniel met her eyes. He could have ended everything with one sentence, but he didn't. "My business failed," he said simply. Felicia stared at him, her eyes drifting to the bowl in his hand, then back to his face. She looked like someone who had just seen a story take a turn she never expected. And without knowing it, she had just stepped into the part of Daniel Amati's life that would change everything. Felicia stood in front of Daniel with her eyes fixed on him, still struggling to match the man she remembered from school, with the man standing in worn clothes beside the roadside. Her chest tightened in a way she didn't expect. It was not just shock. It was pain, too. The kind of pain that comes when you see someone reduced and you wish you could rewrite the moment. She looked at the bowl in his hand, then at his face again, and her voice softened. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, like she didn't know what else to say. "I wish you didn't have to go through all this." She didn't question him further. She didn't ask for explanations or proof. Something in her simply refused to leave him there like that, like a forgotten thing on the street. Daniel watched her closely, carefully, and guardedly. He had seen different kinds of people during the past month. People who tossed coins with pride, people who ignored him with disgust, and people who mocked him openly. But the way Felicia looked at him now was different. It carried concern. It carried respect. And that unsettled him more than insults ever could. He swallowed once, then asked in a low voice, almost like he didn't want to hear the answer. "Do you dislike me now?" Felicia's brows pulled together. "Dislike you?" she repeated, genuinely surprised. "Daniel, you didn't dislike me back in school, though we didn't interact much. Why would I dislike you now?" She paused, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. Then she took a breath like she was about to step into something she had avoided for years. "I always admired you," she said. "Even when we weren't close, you were quiet, but you carried yourself like someone who had a plan. I used to notice that." Her voice dropped lower. "And I won't lie, I liked you. I just never thought you would ever look in my direction." Daniel stared at her. The street noise around them continued. Cars, footsteps, voices. But for a second it felt like all of it moved far away. A beautiful young woman was standing in front of him, saying she had admired him, saying she liked him, while he looked like a man with nothing. He had heard fake sympathy for a month. He had heard people talk down on him like he was dirt. But this confession sounded too honest to be true. "You don't mind?" he asked, his voice careful. "Even now?" Felicia shook her head. "If you will have me," she said simply. "I don't mind." Daniel's throat tightened. He didn't know why her words hit him like that. Maybe because he knew he wasn't truly poor. Yet he had seen how people treated a man they believed was poor. He had watched the world reveal itself. And right now, this woman was revealing something else, something rare. Felicia stepped closer. "You can't stay here," she said firmly, as she had already decided. "I can't just leave you on the street." Daniel hesitated, but she didn't wait for him to agree. She reached out and took his hand, holding it with a warmth that felt almost too intimate for two people who had barely spoken in school. Her grip wasn't weak or uncertain. It was steady, protective, like she meant it. As she led him away from the roadside, some people nearby turned to stare. Two women standing close to a kiosk whispered loudly on purpose, the way people whisper when they want to be heard. "That girl is very beautiful," one said, her eyes scanning Felicia from head to toe. "But her eyes are not good. She chose a beggar." The other laughed. "Maybe she doesn't know what she's doing." Felicia heard them. She stopped and turned, still holding Daniel's hand. Her face was calm, but her voice came out clear. "So what if he's a beggar?" she said. "I like him." The woman blinked, surprised that she answered them. Felicia continued, not shouting, not insulting them back, just speaking like someone correcting a wrong. "Life can happen to anyone," she said. "It doesn't mean they deserve to be mocked. Some of you are one bad day away from sitting where he Saturday, so be careful how you laugh at people." One of them scoffed, but it lacked confidence now. Another looked away, suddenly uncomfortable. Felicia lifted her chin slightly. "We're getting married soon," she added, not even thinking twice about saying it, like she was defending something she already claimed. The women laughed again, but weaker this time, and they backed off, no longer bold enough to keep talking. Felicia turned and continued walking with Daniel. Daniel looked down at the hand she was holding and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, something close to disbelief. He kept his face neutral, but inside his thoughts moved quietly. "This woman is so good to me. How will I repay her?" And as he walked beside her, he realized that this test had already given him more than results. It had shown him a heart he never expected to find. Felicia led Daniel by the hand until the noise of the roadside faded behind them. Daniel walked quietly beside her, still looking like a man the world had thrown away, but his mind was busy. He kept remembering the way she stood up for him without fear, the way she spoke like his dignity still mattered. When they finally reached her apartment building and climbed the stairs, Felicia opened her door and stepped aside for him to enter first. The space was small but warm, clean, and lived in. A cozy apartment with soft light, neat curtains, and the faint smell of fresh soap. It wasn't rich, but it was peaceful, the kind of place that felt safe. Daniel stood in the middle of the living room for a moment, unsure of where to place himself, as if he didn't want to dirty anything with his presence. Felicia noticed and spoke gently. "Sit," she said, pointing to the couch. "You're not a stranger here." Then she added, "You need to bathe. You can use the bathroom. I'll bring you a towel." She disappeared briefly, returned with a towel and a pair of clean slippers, then looked at him again, her eyes soft. "Please," she said, "go and wash up. I'll step out and buy you clothes." Daniel Unk's brows lifted slightly. "You'll buy me clothes?" Felicia nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Yes," she said simply. "You can't stay in those clothes." She didn't wait for him to argue. She picked up her bag and headed for the door. I'll be back soon, she added and left. The moment the door clicked shut, the apartment became quiet. Daniel waited. He listened. He made sure there was no sound outside her door, no chance she was still standing there. Only then did his face change slightly. The calm, humble expression remained, but his eyes sharpened with authority. He reached into his pocket, brought out a phone that didn't match his appearance at all, and placed a call. His voice dropped into a low, controlled tone. "It's me." On the other end, someone responded instantly, alert and respectful. Daniel spoke without wasting time. "I want a crystal crown purchased abroad," he said. "The best. No delays. I also want a legendary diamond gift, something that can't be easily matched. And there's a property under the group's Asia portfolio I want transferred. Change the legal ownership. Put it in Felicia Edmai's name." A short pause followed, like the person on the other end was carefully absorbing the weight of what he just said. Chairman understood. The voice replied. Daniel leaned back slightly, his eyes far away now, remembering something older than this moment. Jessica Oper, the one who once called herself his girlfriend. They had dated briefly just before his business truly took off. She had been with him because of the money his parents left behind after their death. When the company suffered a serious crash and people whispered the word bankruptcy, Jessica did not stay to fight with him. She didn't even ask questions. She walked away without looking back. She abandoned him when he needed her most. And she did it with a coldness that still surprised him whenever he remembered it. Now he thought of Felicia again. How she held his hand in public, how she defended him, how she looked at him with respect even while thinking he had nothing. Daniel's mouth tightened slightly. "Prepare everything," he told his team, voice steady. "The wedding will proceed, and when it happens, it will shock everyone." He ended the call, placed the phone away, and his face returned to the quiet, helpless look the world expected. Then he went into the bathroom and turned on the shower. The next day came. Quickly, and with it came Felicia's quiet determination. She returned from the market carrying a bag that looked too heavy for what it should have been. When Daniel came out to meet her, freshly bathed and looking cleaner, she placed the bag on the couch and began pulling out the clothes with a small smile. It was a full outfit, simple but clearly expensive, the kind of brand people respected without even asking the price. Daniel touched the fabric and pretended to be shocked. "This brand is costly," he said carefully. Felicia shrugged lightly. "You must dress well," she replied. "You're the groom." Daniel looked at her. "The groom?" he repeated. Felicia nodded as the decision had already been made in her heart. "Yes," she said. "You're not walking out there looking like someone the world can spit on again." Daniel didn't respond. He only watched her because there was something painful and beautiful in the way she spoke, like she had already accepted him as hers. Then Felicia sat down and reached into her handbag. She brought out a thick bundle wrapped neatly, the kind of bundle that made a room suddenly feel serious. She placed it in his hands. Daniel's eyes dropped to it. "What is this?" he asked, though he already knew. 11 million naira, Felicia said quietly. "My savings." Daniel Unk's fingers tightened instinctively. "Felicia, no." She held his gaze. "It's for the wedding," she said. "Logistics, transport, settling, family introductions. You know how these things are. I don't want you to go and be embarrassed again." Daniel shook his head immediately and tried to push it back to her. "I can't take this," he said. Pride rose in his voice despite himself. "It's too much." Felicia pushed it back into his palm, firmer this time. "You will soon be my husband," she said. "If I don't help you, who will?" Daniel stared at her silent. Felicia's voice softened again, turning gentle. "Life has ups and downs," she continued. "I believe you will succeed again. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I believe it. And when that day comes, I will be happy that I didn't abandon you when you were down." Daniel looked away for a moment because something in his chest felt tight. He had spent a month watching how people behaved when they thought a man had nothing. He expected pity, mockery, or selfish kindness that wanted something in return. What he did not expect was this: someone pouring out her own future into his hands without fear. He looked back at Felicia and forced his voice to stay calm. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said quietly. Felicia nodded once. "I understand," she answered. "I'm choosing you." And Daniel Amarty, the chairman the country barely knew, sat there holding 1 million naira from a woman who believed he was a poor beggar. and he knew with certainty that he would spend the rest of his life repaying the kind of love that money could never buy. Daniel still held the bundle of money in his hands as if it were something fragile, 1 million naira. Not because he needed it, but because of what it represented. Felicia was looking at him with quiet faith. The kind that didn't ask too many questions, the kind that simply stayed. He breathed in slowly, then reached for her hand and held it not as a test anymore, but as a promise. "Felicia," he said softly, "I will marry you with my whole heart." Felicia's eyes searched his face like she was checking if he meant it. Daniel didn't flinch. His voice remained steady. "You have given me more than money," he continued. "You have given me respect. You have given me hope. I will make you the happiest woman." Felicia's lips trembled slightly, but she forced a small smile. "Just be honest with me," she said. "That's all I want." Before Daniel could reply, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and answered immediately. "Chairman," his assistant's voice came through, urgent but controlled. "The annual Wealth Summit has already started. All the industry leaders are present. They are waiting for you." Daniel's face changed slightly, not panic but pressure. The kind of man carries when he has responsibilities bigger than himself. He lowered the phone and looked at Felicia. "I have to step out briefly," he said, "but the wedding is still in 2 days. Nothing changes." Felicia studied him for a moment. She noticed the rush in his movements, the tightness around his eyes, the way he was trying to keep himself calm. She moved closer and touched his arm gently. "Daniel," she said quietly, "don't hide anything from me, no matter what it is. We face it together." Daniel held her gaze, and for a second the weight in his chest lifted. He nodded slowly. "Okay," he replied, keeping his voice soft. "Together." Felicia walked him to the door. She watched him leave, still dressed like a man the world would ignore, and she stood there for a moment after the door shut, unsure why her heart felt both full and anxious at the same time. Daniel entered his waiting car and the door closed behind him. The moment the car pulled away, his assistant turned slightly from the front seat. "Chairman, are you ready?" Daniel's eyes were calm again. "Yes," he said. "Let's go." Soon he arrived at the venue of the annual Wealth Summit. Private, heavily guarded hall where power sat comfortably. The kind of place that didn't welcome noise, only influence. Inside were the richest men and women across Africa, the 1% of the 1%, people whose signatures could move markets, whose decisions could affect millions without them even standing up from their seats. They wore expensive clothes and calm faces, but their eyes were sharp, trained by years of holding wealth. The moment Daniel walked in, the entire room shifted. Men who never bowed to anyone stood up. Women who ruled empires stood in respect. Conversations died down like someone muted the world. "God of wealth," someone said with reverence. "Welcome, God of wealth. God of wealth has arrived." Daniel moved forward without arrogance, his expression controlled, his steps unhurried. He took his seat at the front like a man who had always belonged there. One after another, the tycoons greeted him not with pride but with gratitude. "Chairman," one of them said, voice thick with emotion, 10 years have passed so quickly. If not for you, I would not be where I am today." Another nodded quickly. "You gave us a chance when nobody believed in us. You opened doors we didn't even know existed." A third leaned forward. "Tell us what you want. What can we do to repay you? Just speak." Daniel's face remained calm, but his eyes carried something deeper than business. He did not come here to collect praise. He raised his hand slightly, and the room quieted instantly. "Make it simple," Daniel said. "I don't need flattery, I need action." His assistant stepped forward and placed a file in front of him. Daniel opened it and looked around the room. "This past month," he began, "I went out in disguise." Murmurs rose, shocked but quiet. No one dared to interrupt him. "I lived as a beggar," Daniel continued. "I wanted to see something with my own eyes. I wanted to know how people treat others when they think there is nothing to gain." Silence deepened. Daniel pushed the file forward slightly. 100 people, he said. Only 100 out of thousands who passed. These 100 showed kindness. Some gave small, some gave big, but what matters is that they gave with a good heart. He looked at them firmly. "I have approved a 100-person support plan," he said. "Within 1 month, each of these people must receive enough financial support to change their destiny." He paused, making sure the words landed. "Fund it," Daniel ordered quickly. No excuses, no delays. Immediately, heads nodded all around the room. "God of wealth, don't worry. One man said, "We will do it." Yes. Another added, "We will execute it with speed." Woman at the side spoke with emotion. "Chairman, you are the reason we still believe kindness matters." Daniel's gaze did not soften, but his voice became quieter, heavier. "Good people deserve good rewards," he said. "That is the only reason wealth is meaningful in the first place." And as the richest people in Africa sat before him, ready to carry out his instructions, Daniel Amadi's mind drifted back to Felicia, back to the 1 million naira in his hand, back to the way she said, "We face it together." He had come to the summit as the god of wealth, but in his heart he had already chosen the one person he wanted to kneel before, not with money but with love. He lifted his eyes and spoke again. "There is something else," he said. The room leaned in. "I'm getting married in 2 days." A wave of surprise moved through the hall. Some eyes widened. Some faces lit up with excitement like children who had just heard good news from someone they respected deeply. "Chairman is getting married. Our god of wealth is getting married." Almost immediately, voices rose in the same direction, full of eagerness. "Please allow us to attend," one tycoon said quickly. "We beg you." Yes. Another added, "Marriage is a major event in your life. You have done so much for us. Let us witness this one thing." Daniel Unk's expression didn't change, but he raised a hand slightly to calm the room. "No," he said, at first firm and simple. "It's not that I don't value you, but my bride is simple." He chose his words carefully. "She hasn't seen much of the world. You people are giants. The car kings, real estate kings, industry leaders. Your presence alone can shake the economy. If you come, the media will follow. Attention will rise and my identity may be exposed." They exchanged looks, unwilling to accept his refusal. "Chairman," a woman said softly, "then we will come as ordinary people." Yes. Another man agreed immediately. "No suits, no bodyguards, no loud displays. We will blend in." A third leaned forward. "Even if you don't let us sit as guests, let us stand behind. Let us run errands. Let us carry chairs if we have to. We just want to be there." Daniel looked at them for a long moment. It wasn't pride that held him back. It was caution. He had kept a low profile for a reason. He had built a multi-billion naira empire while staying in the shadows, letting the company's public faces be known while he remained almost invisible. If they attended carelessly, everything could break open. He finally nodded once. "All right," he said. "You may attend." Relief spread across their faces instantly. "But," Daniel added, his voice turning sharp with warning, "there is one strict rule: you do not expose me. Not for jokes, not for praise, not for anything." His eyes moved slowly across them. "Do not reveal that I am the chairman. Do not reveal that I am the world's richest man. If anyone breaks that rule, you will ruin my wedding and you will answer to me." Every head nodded quickly. "Yes, chairman, we understand. We will keep it hidden." Daniel leaned back slightly, satisfied. "Good," he said. "Then it is settled." While that hall of power made plans to pretend to be ordinary, Felicia was in another place entirely, one filled with family noise and simple excitement. She returned home later that day with her heart beating fast. Her mother was in the living room folding clothes when Felicia walked in. "Mommy," Felicia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I have something to tell you." Her mother looked up immediately. "What is it?" Felicia hesitated for a second, then said it. "I'm getting married in 2 days." Her mother froze. "What?" Felicia nodded. 2 days. For a moment, her mother looked like someone trying to process an unexpected dream. Then her face broke into a wide smile. "Married?" she shouted, standing up. "Felicia, you want to kill me with shock." Felicia laughed nervously. "I know it's sudden." "Sudden?" her mother repeated, half laughing, half complaining. 2 days, 2 days. Is it water you people are using to plan marriage now?" But even as she complained, her happiness was obvious. She pulled Felicia closer, touched her face, and smiled like she was seeing her daughter for the first time. "Ah, my daughter is beautiful," she said with pride. "God has done it." Then she remembered herself and began to speak like a mother who had been waiting for this day. "Listen to me," she said, lowering her voice. "When you reach your husband's house, you must be respectful, you must be virtuous, you must be patient. Marriage is not a playground." Felicia nodded gently. "I understand, Mommy." Her mother sighed, still smiling. "Even though the notice is short, we will do it," she said, already mentally arranging what needed to be done. "We will prepare, we will cook, we will invite people, we will not allow shame." Before Felicia could respond, the front door opened with energy and a familiar voice filled the room. "Mommy, I'm back." It was Felicia's older sister, Anita. Anita walked in with her bag, then paused when she noticed the strange mood in the room. "Why are you both looking like this?" she asked. "What's going on?" Felicia took a breath. "I'm getting married," she said. Anita blinked. "Married?" she repeated slowly. "Married to who?" Felicia's voice stayed simple. "His name is Daniel Amarty." Anita's brows lifted. "Daniel Amarty," she echoed, trying to place the name. "What does he do? Who is he?" Felicia shook her head. "Slightly. Just Daniel Amati," she said, not adding anything else. But her mother's eyes shifted as if memory had opened in her mind. "Amati," she murmured. "I remember that name." She looked at Felicia. "Isn't that the young man whose father used to run that business before?" She nodded slowly as if the picture was becoming clearer. "Yes, yes, I remember. Their family had something going on." Felicia did not correct her. She did not add details. She just stood there letting her mother's words settle where they would settle. Anita still looked confused, but her mother was already moving like a woman on a mission. "No time," she said, clapping her hands once. "We must start preparations. Anita, go and tell your aunties, call the family group. Felicia, bring your phone, we must send invitations to friends. Even if it's small, we will do it properly." And just like that, the house filled with movement. Wedding talk, phone calls, lists, and the loud, sweet stress of joy. While far away, powerful people were preparing to hide their wealth and step into a simple wedding for the sake of a woman who still believed she was marrying a poor man. The house was still buzzing with movement. Phones were ringing. Names were being written down. Anita was already calling relatives and sending quick messages to family friends. Mrs. Admai kept moving from one corner of the living room to another, complaining about the short notice while still smiling as she planned food, clothes, and everything that would make the wedding look proper. Felicia stood in the middle of it all, quiet but steady, letting the noise wash over her while her mind stayed on Daniel. That same afternoon, a message landed on Cynthia Bellow's phone. She read it once, then she read it again, her lips stretching into a grin that wasn't happy at all. "You people," she called out to her friend immediately. "Guess what?" They gathered around her. "She's getting married," Cynthia said, eyes shining with mischief. "Felicia Adami. And you know who the groom is." "Who?" someone asked. Cynthia laughed. "Daniel Amarty." The girls froze for half a second, then erupted. "Daniel, that Daniel the beggar, the one we saw on the street." Cynthia's laughter grew louder. "Exactly, so she's really serious. She wants to marry that beggar. I didn't even know they were dating." One of her friends shook her head. "We have to go there. This is not something you keep quiet about." Cynthia lifted her phone. "Don't worry," she said. "I have evidence." Before long, Cynthia and her friends were at the Addy family's home, arriving with the kind of fake concern that still carried excitement underneath it. They greeted loudly and entered like they had urgent news. Mrs. Adami was the first to face them. "Cynthia," she said, surprised. "What brings you here?" Cynthia made her voice sound serious. "Auntie, we came because we can't pretend we didn't know," she said. "It's about Felicia's wedding." At the sound of that, Anita stepped closer. Felicia's heart tightened slightly, like her spirit already sensed trouble. Mrs. Admai's smile faded. "What about the wedding?" she asked cautiously. Cynthia looked at Felicia and then back at Mrs. Admai. "Auntie," she said, "do you know that Daniel Amarty is a beggar?" The room went still. "What? Which Daniel?" Mrs. Adami asked sharply, like she didn't hear well. "The same one Felicia wants to marry. He is a street beggar," Cynthia repeated louder. "Now we saw him with our own eyes. He was on the roadside begging for food money." Mrs. Admai's face drained. "No," she said, shaking her head. "That can't be true." Cynthia didn't argue. She simply lifted her phone. "We even recorded it," she said. "Because we were shocked, Auntie C." She pressed play. The video showed Daniel sitting by the roadside dressed like a homeless man, repeating blessings, thanking people, and asking politely for food money. It captured everything. The torn look, the way people ignored him. It was clear enough to break any doubt. Mrs. Admai's hand flew to her chest. "Jesus," she gasped, then her voice rose. "Thank God she hasn't married him yet." She turned sharply to look at Felicia. "Felicia," she called, her voice shaking with panic and anger. "Is this true?" Felicia didn't flinch. "Yes, Mommy," she said quietly. "It's him." Mrs. Zaddy staggered back like she had been slapped. "So you knew?" she cried. You knew and you still came to tell me you are marrying in 2 days. Felicia nodded. I knew. Mrs. Admai's face twisted in disbelief. Ah, she shouted. This is why I said this wedding is too rushed. I agreed because I thought you had found a rich man. I didn't know you hadn't found a rich man, haven't even found a poor man, but a street beggar. She hit her palm against her thigh in frustration. Is that how madness starts? Mommy. Felicia tried to speak. Shut up, Mrs. Adami snapped, then turned toward Anita like she needed backup. Anita, do you hear this? This wedding must be canceled immediately. Anita's eyes were wide. Felicia, is it true? She asked, stunned. Felicia nodded again, steady. Yes, but I'm still marrying him. Mrs. Adami's mouth fell open. You're still marrying him, she repeated like the words tasted bitter. No, over my dead body, she pointed toward the door as if she could point the entire matter away. Cancel everything. Call the people. Stop cooking. Stop invitations. Stop all of it. Then she faced Felicia fully, voice rising higher. And that beggar must not come here. Do you hear me? He must not come. I will not allow a street beggar to enter this house and marry my daughter. Felicia stepped forward, her voice firm but emotional. Mommy, no, she said. The wedding will not be canceled. The room froze again. Mrs. Admai stared at her like she didn't recognize her child. What did you say? Felicia's eyes were wet now, but she didn't back down. I said the wedding must happen, she repeated. I love him. He is kind. He is still a human being. If he is down today, it doesn't mean he will be down forever. We can build together. Mrs. Ari let out a bitter laugh. Build together, she shouted with a street beggar. Felicia, you don't even know what you're talking about. Felicia shook her head slowly. I know what I'm saying, she replied. I don't care if he is a beggar. I cannot throw him away because life has touched him. I won't be like people who mock him. Mrs. Admai's voice cut through the room like a knife. You are crazy, she yelled. Do you want this village to finish us with gossip? Do you want people to laugh at your late father's name? Your father worked hard and died with dignity, and you want to drag our family into shame. Felicia flinched at the mention of her father, but she still held her ground. Daddy would want me to choose kindness, she said, voice trembling. Daniel has been good to me, Mommy. Cynthia and her friends exchanged looks, satisfied, like this drama was exactly what they came for. Mrs. Adam wasn't listening anymore. Her fear had turned into full anger. Kindness doesn't feed a home, she shouted. Love doesn't buy food. Felicia, you will not do this. Rubbish under my roof. Anita stepped forward, trying to calm her mother. Mommy, calm down. No, Anita, Mrs. Adami snapped. This must stop now. She must not marry him. Then, as if remembering something she had been holding in her back pocket, Mrs. Admai's face changed. She pointed at Felicia again, but this time her voice became sharp and strategic. Since you want to marry so badly, she said, I have an option for you. Felicia's brows pulled together. What option? Mrs. Adami lifted her chin. Kelvin, she said. Kelvin Ken Baydella, the son of a rich man. He has been asking for your hand. He wants you and he is ready. If you must marry, you will marry Ken. Felicia stared at her mother in disbelief, her heart sinking as she realized her mother wasn't just rejecting Daniel, she was already trying to replace him. And in that tense living room, with Cynthia watching like it was a show, Felicia stood between love and family shame, knowing that whatever she chose next would change her life forever. The moment Cynthia and her friends finally left, the house fell into a strange kind of silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was the silence that comes after shouting, after embarrassment, after fear has entered a home and refused to leave. Mrs. Admai sat down hard on the couch as if her legs could no longer carry the weight of what she had just heard. Her face was tight with anger, but her eyes were also restless, like she was already planning something. Felicia stood near the wall, her chest rising and falling slowly. She felt tired, not in her body but in her spirit. She had defended Daniel, defended her choice, defended love itself, yet she still felt like she was standing alone. Anita moved closer to her, her voice suddenly soft. Felicia, she said gently. Don't worry, Felicia turned, hope flickering in her eyes. Anita. Anita touched her arm like a caring sister. I understand you, she said. And I know Mommy is just angry because she's scared of what people will say. But leave it to me. I will talk to her. I will convince her. Felicia's shoulders loosened slightly as someone had finally offered her water in the middle of the heat. You will? She asked, her voice almost breaking. Anita nodded. Yes, she said confidently. Go and continue your preparations. Don't slow down. I will handle Mommy. Relief rushed through Felicia so fast it made her eyes sting. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Anita smiled warmly, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach the deepest part of her eyes. Felicia didn't notice. She was too grateful, too desperate to hold on to anything that looked like support. She hurried to her room, already thinking of what still needed to be done. Her dress, the food arrangements, the small things that would make the wedding feel real. In her heart, she kept repeating one thing: Daniel will come. Daniel will come. In the living room, Anita turned and faced their mother. Mrs. Admai's voice dropped into a quiet, dangerous tone. Did you see her stubbornness? She asked. Anita nodded. I saw it. Mrs. Adami's jaw tightened. Then you know we cannot allow this nonsense. Anita leaned closer. Mommy, don't worry, she said. Leave it to me. Mrs. Adami exhaled sharply and stood up. She reached for her phone first, pressed it, then frowned. Ah, she said quickly. My phone has died. Anita's eyes shifted toward the hallway. Grace. Sorry, Felicia's phone is in her bag, she said. Mrs. Adami nodded once, already moving with purpose. When Felicia returned briefly to the living room to grab something, her mother called her sweetly, too sweetly. Felicia, Mrs. Adami said, forcing a calm voice. My phone is dead. Give me your phone. I need to make 1 or 2 calls about the wedding. Felicia didn't suspect anything. She only hesitated because of the earlier argument, but Anita quickly added, Give her Felicia. Let's just settle everything. Felicia handed the phone over. Mrs. the Zadami held it, then turned slightly away as if she was about to call someone harmless. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. She didn't call a caterer. She didn't call an auntie. She searched and tapped the name she wanted. Daniel. The line rang. Daniel answered, Hello. His voice came through, calm but alert. Mrs. Admai changed her tone immediately. She spoke as if she were doing him a favor. Daniel, she said, voice cold. This is Grace's mother. Daniel paused. Ma, he replied politely. Good afternoon. Mrs. Adami didn't return the greeting. I'm calling to tell you something, she said. Grace doesn't want to marry you anymore. Daniel's world went still. What? He asked, the single word full of shock. Mrs. Adam continued, pouring lies like it was water. She doesn't want to marry you again, she repeated. So don't come and embarrass her. She wants her face. Daniel's grip tightened around his own phone, his voice lowered. Ma, he said carefully, Grace did not tell me this. She doesn't need to tell you, Mrs. Adami snapped. Just do as I said. Don't come. Daniel's heart beat once heavy. Something didn't sit right. Felicia had looked him in the eyes and promised she had given him her savings. She had defended him in public. This sudden change sounded like a lie, a wearing someone else's voice. Ma, Daniel said again, slower this time. Let me speak to Grace. Mrs. Adam's eyes narrowed. She doesn't want to speak to you, she said immediately. And she will not take your call. Don't disturb her. Then she ended the call. For a second, the living room felt like it was holding its breath. Mrs. Adami looked at Anita. Anita nodded once. No words were needed. Their plan was already in motion. Mrs. Adami walked straight to the kitchen area, lifted the phone in her hand, and smashed it hard against the edge of the counter. The sharp crack sounded like a gunshot in the quiet house. Anita flinched but quickly covered it with a cough. The screen blinked once, then went black. Mrs. Adami stared at the broken phone as if she had just solved a problem. Now, she muttered. She can't call him. Anita nodded again, her face calm. She won't even be able to ask questions, she said softly. In Daniel's car, far away from that house, he stared at his phone after the call ended. His face was calm, but his eyes had turned colder. Grace doesn't want to marry you anymore. It didn't make sense. Not with what he had seen. Not with what she had done. And for the first time since he began his one-moan test, Daniel felt something close to real anger rise in his chest. Not because he was being rejected, but because he was being lied to. He leaned back slightly, voice low as he spoke to himself. Something is wrong, he said. And deep inside him, the chairman of Dream Chasing Group was already preparing to go and find out exactly what it was. He sat back in the car, staring at the phone in his hand-desk. It had betrayed him. The call had ended, but his mind was still inside it. Inside the strange coldness in Mrs. Admai's voice, inside the lie that didn't sound like Felicia at all. He tried the number again. It didn't go through. He tried again. Nothing. A slow breath left his chest. He didn't panic, but something in him settled into a firm decision. No. He said quietly, I'm going. His assistant, sitting close by, glanced at him. Chairman. Daniel's eyes were steady. I'm going to pay her bride price, he said. If she doesn't want me, I will hear it from her mouth. But Mom already warned. Daniel's voice hardened. Let her warn. I'm not marrying her mother. I'm marrying her. His assistant lowered his head. Respectful, understood. Still, as protocol demanded, a message was sent ahead that Daniel was insisting on coming because even disguised his team moved with order. And in the Adami house, that message reached Mrs. Adami like fuel on fire. Mrs. Adami stood up sharply. So that beggar still has a mouth, she snapped. He still wants to come here. Anita's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly covered it with a scoff. Mommy, he has no shame. Mrs. Adami let out a harsh laugh. Bride price, she repeated loudly. Is it from the money he has been gathering on the streets? The coins people throw into his bowl? Is that the bride price he wants to pay in my house? She waved. With disgust, I don't want his beggar money. Her face was tight now, pride rising like a storm. She felt insulted, not just because Daniel was poor, but because he dared to insist. In her mind, his persistence was not love, it was audacity. Call the boys, she ordered. Anita hesitated. Which boys? The local tough men, Mrs. Adami said, voice sharp. Let them guard the entrance. If he tries to set foot inside, they should drive him away. Do you hear me? Drive him away. Anita nodded quickly and made the call. Within a short time, several men gathered at the entrance leading into the area, standing with the posture of people paid to be cruel. Some held sticks. Some held tools they used on farms and in workshops. They laughed among themselves as they waited, eager for drama. Back on the road, Daniel's convoy moved quietly. To anyone watching from outside, it didn't look like a billionaire's movement at all. The cars were decent but not flashy. Everything had been planned that way. Daniel sat in front like a simple man going to a wedding, dressed plain, face calm. Behind him were the tycoon friends who had begged to attend, now dressed like ordinary people, blending into the background just as they promised. No designer suits, no loud jewelry, no proud swagger. They looked like humble guests going to support a groom. Daniel had warned them again before they set out. Remember, he had said, eyes firm. Felicia doesn't know. Do not expose anything. Do not ruin this for me. They had all agreed. Now as the road stretched ahead, the air felt tense, like something ugly was waiting. And it was not far ahead. Voice suddenly rose. Stop there. The convoy slowed. Men stepped into the road, blocking them. Their faces were hard, their mouths were loose. Their eyes were already full of judgment. One of them pointed at Daniel's car and shouted, So it's you. Another laughed loud and mocking. Beggar dressed like a dog. A third spat on the ground. Toad wants swan meat, he said, reaching more than he deserves. Daniel's assistant stiffened beside him. One of the men behind, one of Daniel's guards, shifted his body slightly, prepared to act. Daniel lifted a hand immediately. Nobody moves, he said quietly. The car door opened and Daniel stepped out. He did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He simply stood there calm, like a man trying to solve a problem with dignity. Good afternoon, he said. They laughed harder, like his greeting was a joke. What afternoon? One of them barked. We don't greet beggars here. Daniel's eyes stayed steady. I'm not here to fight, he said. I only came because I have an engagement with the Addy family. At the mention of the family name, one of the men snorted. Engagement, he repeated. You a beggar? Daniel nodded once. Yes, he said. I'm supposed to marry Felicia. The men burst into loud, mocking laughter. Marry? One shouted. You want to marry a fine girl like that? Another lifted his stick slightly. Ogre, just turn back, he warned. Before you go home with an injury, Daniel's voice remained controlled. I'm not forcing anyone, he said. I only want to understand why. I haven't been able to reach Felicia. Her mother called me and said she doesn't want to marry me. That is not what Felicia told me, so I want to hear her refusal by herself. The leader of the men stepped closer. You want an explanation, he mocked. The explanation is simple. She doesn't want to marry a beggar, that's all. Daniel shook his head slightly. I still want to hear it from her, he repeated. Please make way. The men's faces hardened, tools lifted. The mood changed from mockery to threat. Behind Daniel, his guards moved slightly, even the tycoons traveling with him. Men who are used to boardrooms and quiet power felt their anger rise. One of them stepped forward instinctively, eyes narrowing. Daniel's hand rose again. "Stop," he said firmly without turning. "No violence." His assistant leaned closer. "Chairman, their behavior." I said no violence," Daniel repeated, his voice low but final. Then Daniel reached into his pocket and brought out thick envelopes, cash gifts. He held them up calmly. "I don't want trouble," he said. "Please take this. Let us pass peacefully." The men stared for half a second. Then one of them laughed like he had heard nonsense. "You," he scoffed. "You want to buy us off?" Another waved the envelope away. "Which money?" Mocked. "Nah, the money you begged on the street. You want to use beggar money to settle us." The insults grew louder, uglier. "See him forming a rich man. Where did you get the envelope? You think you are somebody?" Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his face calm. He offered again patiently. "Please," he said. "I'm not here to disrespect anyone." But the men refused to move. Instead, they stepped closer, surrounding him with the confidence of people who believed they could humiliate him without consequences. They continued to mock him, calling him names, acting like his life was already decided because of how he looked. Daniel stood in the middle of their cruelty. Quiet and steady, he had disguised himself to test people's hearts. But now, as the insults hit him from every side, he realized this was no longer a test. This was war against love fought with pride, gossip, and cruelty. And even though he still refused to let his people retaliate, something in Daniel's eyes had changed. Because the chairman could tolerate being mocked, but he could not tolerate anyone trying to destroy Felicia's future with lies. He was still standing on the road, surrounded by men whose mouths were louder than their sense. The air was thick with insults. One of them waved a stick close to his chest as if daring him to react. Another spat on the ground and laughed like this was entertainment. Behind Daniel, his guards were tense. His assistant's jaw was tight. Even the ordinary-looking men traveling with Daniel, men who could buy this entire road without blinking, were struggling to keep calm. But Daniel's hand was still raised, his voice still controlled. "No violence," he said again, firm. The leader of the hired men scoffed. "Then stand there and collect your shame," he said, "because you're not passing." Daniel didn't answer. He simply looked past them like he was still searching for a way to hear Felicia's voice for himself. Then suddenly a sharp scream cut through everything. Not the kind of scream people do for drama. This one had fear inside it. "Ah, my child." The insults paused, heads turned. Just on the side of the road, near a small roadside food spot, a woman had dropped her bowl of water. The container rolled away. A child, small and wet, was coughing violently, choking like something had blocked his throat. His face was turning red, then purple, eyes wide with panic. "Mama Faye." Someone shouted. The woman, Mama F. The roadside food seller rushed toward her child with shaking hands. "F.E.," she cried, grabbing him, patting his back, panicking. The child coughed again, struggling, the sound harsh and frightening. Mama Faye's eyes rolled upward as she cried, and then her body jerked. She fell hard. Her limbs began to shake. Foam gathered at the corner of her mouth. The seizure hit her fully right there on the ground, as her body had suddenly become a battlefield. People jumped back. "Ah, she's having a seizure, epilepsy. Hold her, don't hold her." Everybody shouted at once, but nobody actually helped in a useful way. Mama Afak's child began to cry and scream. He dropped to his knees beside her, shaking her arm with small hands. "Mommy, mommy, wake up," he cried. "Please, somebody help my mommy." The road that had been full of pride and insults became a messy argument. "She needs a hospital." "Where is a car?" "Borrow a car from who? She will die." "Don't put her in my car." And just like that, the same people who had the energy to insult Daniel suddenly became people who didn't want to be involved. One man shook his head. "The hospital is far," he said. "Who will carry her?" Another waved his hand. "Don't bring trouble to yourself. Epilepsy is not your mate." A woman cried. Her child is still choking. The child's cries grew louder. He crawled from person to person, grabbing legs, holding trousers, crying until his face was soaked. "Please help me. My mommy will die, please." One man pushed him away. "Leave my leg." Another shouted, "I don't want a problem." The boy fell back on the road, still crying, still begging. Daniel watched all of it, his face changing. The insult of a moment ago didn't matter anymore. He stepped forward. His assistant grabbed his arm quickly. "Chairman, don't," he whispered. "Look at how wicked they are. They just tried to attack you." Daniel's eyes stayed on Mama F shaking on the ground. "A life first," he said quietly. His assistant tried. Again, voice urgent. "Sir, we can leave them, they don't deserve." Daniel turned his head slightly and looked at him, not angry, just firm. "We are not like them," he said. Then he walked past the thugs and knelt beside Mama F. The crowd fell silent in confusion. The beggar they were mocking was now on the ground, sleeves rolled slightly, hands steady like someone who had done this before. Daniel spoke calmly like he was teaching them without shouting. "Give her space," he ordered. "Nobody should be pulling her." He checked her breathing quickly, watched the seizure pattern, then moved with controlled speed. He adjusted her position carefully so she wouldn't choke on saliva. He instructed one person without even looking up. "Wipe the foam gently," he said. "Don't panic." People stared. Someone whispered. "How does he know this?" Daniel's assistant brought water immediately. Another man in Daniel's convoy pulled out a clean cloth. Daniel kept his focus. He didn't rush like an amateur. He didn't scream like the crowd. He used practical emergency care, steady positioning, airway safety, timed observation, then applied a quick technique to calm the episode and protect her from injury. His hands were firm but careful. The seizure began to slow. Mama EA's shaking reduced. Her breathing steadied and then slowly her eyelids fluttered. "Mommy." Her child screamed, clinging to her. Mama Afe blinked, confused. What happened?" she whispered. "You had a seizure." Someone said, shocked. "You almost died." Mama APH tried to sit up, still weak. Her eyes landed on Daniel and stayed there. "Who is this?" she asked, voice rough. "It's him," a child cried. He saved you. He saved you." Mama F looked at Daniel, truly looked at him. His plain clothes, his calm eyes, the dignity in his face that didn't match the way people had been describing him. She struggled to her feet with help. Then she did something that made the crowd shift uncomfortably. She grabbed Daniel's hand with both of hers. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling. "Thank you, my son." Daniel tried to withdraw politely. "Auntie, it's fine," he said. "No," Mama Fa insisted, tears shining. She turned sharply to the men who had been blocking the road. "All of you," she shouted, "I saw everything. You were insulting him. You were stopping him like he was an animal." The men muttered. Some looked away. Mama Fa's voice rose. "This man you were calling a beggar saved my life when you refused to help. If anybody stops him again, you will fight me first." The crowd murmured. People who were shouting before now felt shame crawling up their throats. Even the thugs hesitated. Mama Effie pointed toward the road. "Open the way." A child joined, voice shaky but bold now. "Yes, open the way. He saved my mommy." The mood flipped so fast it almost felt unreal. The same mouths that were insulting Daniel now began to praise him. "This young man is a good man. See kindness. Ah, it's a blessing to marry a man like this." One of the hired tough men scratched his head, suddenly unsure of himself. Another cleared his throat, forcing a fake smile. "Ah, we didn't know," the leader muttered. Mama Effa snapped at him. "You didn't know what? You didn't know you should behave like human beings." The men began to move aside slowly at first, then fully clearing the road. Daniel stood up calmly, dusting his hands lightly. His assistant leaned close. "Chairman," he whispered. "Should we?" Daniel Unk's eyes stayed forward. "Let's go," he said, and like people who suddenly remembered conscience, the same thugs who had blocked the convoy now began to gesture with forced enthusiasm. "This way, sir. Pass, pass. Please forgive us." Some even walked ahead, clearing the road as if they had always been on Daniel's side. Daniel didn't respond to their sudden change. He didn't smile. He didn't insult them back. He simply entered the car again, his face calm, his heart heavy with one thought. "Felicia, why are they doing this to you?" The convoy moved forward, and as they drove toward Felicia's house, the villagers around were already whispering a new story, one that sounded very different from the video Cynthia had brought. Now they were saying, "That man is a good man." Now they were saying, "If Felicia marries him, it will be a blessing." And Daniel, still in disguise, rode quietly toward the storm, waiting for him, knowing that the biggest battle was not on the road. It was inside the Adame compound. While Daniel's convoy was still on the road, while insults were flying, while bodies were blocking the path, while a woman's seizure had flipped the whole crowd, Mrs. Admai was at home setting her own plan in motion like a woman who had already decided what her daughter's life should look like. Inside the compound, everything was being arranged with speed and stubborn confidence. Chairs were lined up. Plates were stacked. The smell of cooking hung in the air. Music was tested lightly from someone's small speaker. Mrs. Adami moved around like a commander. "Today will not spoil," she kept saying. "Today will not spoil." Anita stood close, nodding and helping, her face wearing that same fake calm she had worn when she told Felicia she would convince their mother. Mrs. Admi clapped her hands at the women in the kitchen. "Add more meat," she instructed. "Kelvin is coming. Rich people don't eat like poor people." Someone laughed. Mrs. Admi smiled proudly. "You people think I'm joking," she said. "Kelvin will bring gifts that will shock this whole area. When he enters here, people will know we are not a family to be joked with." Relatives began to arrive, murmuring excitement. Neighbors came too, drawn by the news that a rich man's son was coming to pick a bride. The gossip that had threatened Mrs. Adami's pride now felt like something she could control, something she could turn into praise. "This is better," a woman said, adjusting her wrapper. "This Kelvin, he is the kind of son-in-law we are talking about." "Yes," another agreed. "Not that. That other one." Mrs. Adame nodded, enjoying the approval. "That one has already broken off the marriage," she announced loudly for everyone to hear. "He has canceled it himself." Felicia, standing in the corner, turned sharply. "What?" she asked. Mrs. Adami didn't even blink. "Daniel has broken it off," she repeated. "He won't come again." Felicia's eyes widened. "That is not true," she said quickly, her voice shaking. "Daniel is not like that." Anita stepped in immediately. "Felicia," she said in a warning tone, "enough, don't start embarrassing us again." Felicia ignored her and faced her mother. "Mommy, let me call him," she insisted. "Give me my phone, let me call him myself." Mrs. Adami's expression changed slightly just for a second, then she lifted her chin like a woman with nothing to hide. "Your phone," she repeated. "It's gone." Felicia froze. "What do you mean it's gone?" Mrs. Adami waved her hand as if it were nothing. "I broke it," she said. "I smashed it." Felicia stared at her mother, not understanding at first. Then the meaning hit her full and her body went cold. "You broke my phone," she whispered. "Yes," Mrs. Admi snapped. "So you won't keep disturbing yourself, and so you won't keep disturbing that beggar." Felicia's breath caught in her throat, her eyes filled. "Mommy, why would you do that?" she asked, voice breaking. "Why would you destroy my phone?" Mrs. Zade scoffed. "Because you don't have sense," she replied. "And somebody must have sense in this house." Felicia's hands trembled. She looked around the room at the relatives eating snacks, at neighbors whispering, at Anita standing like a guard watching her. She felt trapped in her own home, but even in that moment she still shook her head, tears dropping. "Daniel loves me," she said. "He will come for me." Anita laughed softly, not kindly. "Come for you?" she repeated. "With what?" "With his begging bowl." Felicia's face hardened. "Don't talk like that," she warned. Anita stepped closer, lowering her voice so it sounded like advice, but it was pressure. "Felicia, open your eyes," she said. "Guests are here. Food is ready. People are waiting. You want them to laugh at us. You want to disgrace us." Mrs. Adami joined in louder. "You will accept Kelvin," she declared. "If you don't, you will lose this family. I will disown you with my 2 hands." The word disown hit Felicia like a slap. She looked at her mother, searching for softness. She found none. Her chest rose and fell fast. "I don't want Kelvin," she said, voice trembling. "I don't like him." Nita rolled her eyes. "Why?" she asked sharply. "Because he is rich." Felicia's face twisted with disgust. "Because he makes my skin crawl," she said. "The last time you introduced him, he didn't even hide it. His eyes were moving all over my body, my chest, my legs, like I was food." Anita made a dismissive sound. "That is how men look," she replied. "At least let a rich man look." Felicia stared at her like she was a stranger. Mrs. Adami's patience snapped. "Enough talk," she shouted. "Today you will marry Kelvin. If you like, cry from now till tomorrow. It will not change anything." Felicia backed away slowly. "No," she said, voice firm now. "I won't marry him." Mrs. Admi's eyes flashed. "Then you will be useless in this life," she said bitterly. "And you will leave my house today." Felicia swallowed hard. "Mommy, don't mommy me." Mrs. Adami barked. "If you don't cooperate, you are no longer my daughter." Anita's face changed into action. She signaled 2 female relatives nearby. "Help me," she said. Felicia's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" Before she could step away, hands grabbed her arms. "Auntie, leave me," Felicia cried, struggling. "Hold her well," Anita ordered, dragging her forward. Felicia fought, but it was hard against many hands. She was pulled toward the inner room where her makeup and outfit were waiting. Not like a bride preparing with joy, but like someone being pushed toward a life she didn't choose. Outside, someone shouted, "They are coming." A new wave of excitement rushed through the compound. Kelvin Ken Bamidal had arrived. The first thing people saw was money. Two young men carried a Ghana must-go bag, heavy and stuffed. Kelvin stepped in behind them with a proud walk, dressed in expensive-looking clothes, smiling. Like a man who believed the whole world was meant to clap for him. "Good afternoon," he announced loudly as if greeting was performance. "Ah," Mrs. Admai's face lit up instantly. "Kelvin, welcome, welcome." Kelvin laughed and opened his arms like a celebrity. "Mommy," he said, already calling her mother-in-law with confidence. "No shaking." He snapped his fingers R's and one of his boys placed the Ghana must-go bag in front of Mrs. Admai. People gasped, "Jesus, money." Kelvin grinned. "Small thing," he said. "Just 1 million naira to greet my mother-in-law." The women started praising him immediately. "See money, God bless you. This is a real man." Kelvin's smile grew wider. "You people haven't seen anything," he boasted. "If the road wasn't bad, I would have come with my luxury cars. Even helicopter, but you know, village road. My cars have a low body." More praise. Mrs. Admai nearly danced with joy. She turned and shouted toward the room. "Felicia, come out, your husband is here." Inside, Felicia was still struggling, eyes wet, chest tight. She didn't want to step out, not like this. Outside, Kelvin asked casually as if it was his right. "So where is my bride?" Mrs. Adami forced a laugh. "She is shy," she said quickly. "First-time bride." Kelvin smirked. "Shy is good," he said. "I like shy girls." But when Felicia finally appeared at the doorway, being dragged forward by relatives, her face was not shy. It was stiff. It was pained. It was a face that had been forced into a place her heart refused to accept. Kelvin's eyes scanned her openly, shamelessly, like he was inspecting what he had bought. Felicia's stomach turned. She looked straight at her mother and sister and said it clearly, loud enough for the nearest people to hear. "I will not marry him." The compound gasped and Mrs. Adami's smile dropped, replaced by the kind of anger that was ready to become something worse. Felicia's voice shook, but it did not break. "I will not marry him," she said again. Kelvin's smile stayed on his face, but his eyes hardened. He wasn't used to being refused, especially in front of people. He looked around like he expected someone to correct her, to remind her that she didn't have the right to choose. Mrs. Admai stepped forward slowly, her anger now boiling over. "So this is how you want to disgrace me?" she asked loud enough for the whole compound to hear in front of my guests. Felicia's chest rose and fell. "Mommy, I didn't choose Kelvin," she said. "I didn't agree to this. You will agree." Mrs. Adomi snapped, "Or I will punish you here today where everybody can see." A heavy silence fell. Even the women who were praising Kelvin earlier stopped talking. People shifted on their seats, sensing this was about to become ugly. Mrs. Adami raised her hand sharply. "Bring her out," she ordered. "Since she wants to behave like she has no home training, I will correct her in public." Felicia stepped back instinctively. "Mommy, please don't please me," Mrs. Adams shouted. "Since you want to throw away your life for a beggar, I will show you that you cannot also throw away my name." Anita quickly moved closer, taking Felicia's arm like a helpful sister again. Her voice dropped low, sweet like poison. "Felicia," she murmured, "listen to me. If you agree to marry Kelvin now, I will help you beg Mommy. I will persuade her. We can calm her down before she does something worse." Felicia stared at her, breathing hard. "Anita, you did this," she whispered. "You lied, you broke my phone, you called Daniel." Anita's face didn't change. "Felicia, this is not the time," she said quickly. "Look around you. If you don't cooperate now, she will disgrace you. Just agree and enter the car. Later, we will talk." Felicia shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "I will not sell myself because people are watching." Mrs. Adami clapped her hands again. "Kneel her down," she ordered. Two women moved forward. Felicia struggled. "Leave me," she cried. The guests began to murmur, some whispering, some cheering the punishment like it was entertainment. "She's stubborn. Ah, this girl has mind. Her mother must deal with her." Kelvin stood there enjoying it, his lips curling slightly like this was proof of his importance. He adjusted his wristwatch and said casually, "Mommy, no need to waste time. If she refuses, just do what you must do. She will learn." Mrs. Admai's eyes flashed. "You hear that?" she barked at Felicia. "You will marry Kelvin today. If not, you will leave this family. I will expel you publicly so everybody will know you are not my daughter again." Felicia's eyes filled with tears, not because she was weak but because the people who should protect her were ready to crush her. And then a voice cut through the compound like a knife through cloth. Felicia. Everyone froze. The gate opened wider. A man stepped in calmly, dressed simply. Face steady, yet his presence carried something that made the whole place feel smaller. Felicia, he called again. Felicia's whole body jerked like she had been pulled back to life. She turned sharply, eyes wide, breathing caught. Daniel, she whispered. Then she ran, not a small step, not a polite walk. She ran straight through the space between chairs and guests, straight past Kelvin, straight past her mother's raised hand. And she crashed into Daniel's arms like a woman who had been drowning and finally found air. Daniel held her immediately, firm and protective. For a second the whole compound went silent. Felicia clung to him, shaking. Daniel, you came, she whispered into his chest, voice breaking. I knew you would come. Daniel's eyes lifted, scanning faces. Mrs. Admai's stiff anger, Anita's tight expression, Kelvin's shocked annoyance. I came because your mother called me, Daniel said clearly. She told me you didn't want to marry me anymore. She said I should not come and embarrass you. Felicia pulled back enough to look at him, tears running. It was a lie, she said loud now. A lie? I never said that. My mother and my sister lied. They blocked you. They destroyed my phony so I couldn't call you. They wanted to force Kelvin on me. The compound erupted into noise. What? Destroyed her phone, so the mother lied. Is that true? Mrs. Admai's face twisted. Stop it, she shouted. Yeah, you this stubborn girl. You want to frame us because your beggar has come. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He simply held Felicia's hand and faced Mrs. Adami with calm. Before anyone could push the argument further, a new voice entered from the gate. Excuse me. Heads turned again. Jessica arrived, not quietly, not humbly. She walked in with confidence, like she had come to watch a show she already knew the ending of. Cynthia was with her and two other girls were trailing behind, eyes bright with gossip. Jessica's lips curved as she looked at Daniel. Wow. Shaking her head. So you still have the guts to show your face like this? Felicia stiffened beside Daniel. Daniel didn't react, he just watched her. Jessica stepped forward smugly, voice loud enough for everyone. Let me help you people understand, she said. This man is a beggar, a failure. Gasps and murmurs again. Jessica's eyes glittered with cruel satisfaction. Yes, she continued. I know him. We dated before, but when he started looking like a man with no future when he was not. Promising, I left him. She lifted her phone, and if anybody wants proof, I have it. Cynthia moved closer and handed Jessica the video properly as they had rehearsed it. Jessica turned the screen outward for people to see. Look, she said loudly. This is him begging on the street. That is your groom. The crowd rushed closer, craning necks, murmuring, some laughing already. Ah, it's him. He was begging, so it's true. Kelvin laughed loudly, relieved. You see, he said, spreading his arms. This is what I have been saying. A beggar wants to marry into this family. Mrs. Adami's eyes brightened with fresh confidence. Exactly, she shouted. Felicia, open your eyes. This is a shame. This is disgrace. Felicia's voice shook with anger now. That video doesn't change who he is to me, she said. Daniel is kind. He is human. Jessica cut her off with a scoff. Kind, she repeated. He is a broke man. If you marry him, you will suffer. Daniel finally spoke, not with noise but with weight. He looked at Jessica and nodded once. It's good you left, he said calmly. Jessica blinked, surprised. Daniel continued, his voice steady, meaningful. If you didn't leave, I might never have met the woman worth sharing my life with. Felicia's heart jumped. She held his hand tighter. Jessica's face tightened. You're still talking like you have something, she mocked. Look at you. Look at your people. Even your entourage dressed like poor villagers. What is that? The crowd joined in quickly, hungry for laughter. See his people like farmers. They probably borrowed these cars. Maybe he used Felicia's money to rent them. Yes, the beggar's money. Kelvin stepped forward, chest out, enjoying the moment. Felicia, he said, voice loud, stop this nonsense. I am the only acceptable son-in-law here. Look at what I brought. Look at my gifts. Look at my class. This one cannot even stand in the same place with me. Mrs. Adami nodded fiercely. Kelvin is the only son-in-law I accept, she declared. Felicia, leave that beggar now. Felicia lifted her chin, tears still on her face but her voice clearer than ever. No, she said, I will marry Daniel. The compound exploded again. some in shock, some in laughter, some in anger. And through all of it, Daniel stayed calm, his eyes steady on Felicia, like he was silently telling her one thing. Trust me, this is not the end of the story. The compound was still buzzing from Felicia's refusal and Daniel's calm replies. People were talking over each other, pointing, judging, laughing, whispering. Kelvin stood there like a man who had already decided the winner because in his mind money always wins. He cleared his throat and lifted his chin. Since we are all here, Kelvin announced loudly, let's not waste time. He turned to Mrs. Edme like they were partners in a business deal. Mommy, bring the list, he said with confidence. Let everybody hear what I came with. One of his boys quickly brought out a neatly written bride price list. Kelvin took it and began to read with pride, stretching each word like it was music. An apartment, he declared. A proper one, good location. People gasped. He continued, voice rising. Cash, heavy cash, enough to settle every introduction, every ceremony, every small demand. The crowd erupted. Ah, this is a real man. See husband Felicia, open your eyes. Mrs. Edme's chest swelled. She looked around like a woman who had finally won a battle. Anita clapped and smiled. Even Cynthia and Jessica were smirking like this was the moment they had been waiting for. Kelvin folded the list dramatically and faced Daniel. So he said, Mr. Beggar Groom, where's your own list? The crowd leaned in. Mrs. Adamy stepped forward sharply. Yes, she barked. Bring your bride price. Let us see what you have. Daniel didn't flinch. He simply nodded once and signaled quietly. His assistant stepped forward and handed him a plain envelope. Daniel opened it calmly and brought out his own list. No drama, no shouting, just a simple paper, traditional, humble, almost old-fashioned. He read it out clearly. Livestock, food items, basic household supplies, a reasonable amount of cash, the kind of list that said, I'm coming with respect, not noise. For 2 seconds there was silence. Then somebody laughed. Then another person laughed louder. And suddenly the compound filled with mocking. That's it, is the joke? Ah, so this is the bride price of beggars. Mrs. Edme's face twisted like she had tasted pepper. You want to marry my daughter with this? She screamed, shaking the paper as if it offended her personally. After I raised her, after I suffered, you want to use goats, rice, and small cash to carry my daughter. Daniel's voice stayed steady. Ma, he said, material things are only the foundation. What matters most is love, care, and how two people treat each other. Kelvin laughed in his face. Love, he repeated, love doesn't buy land, love doesn't buy cars, love doesn't buy an apartment. Felicia tightened her grip on Daniel's hand and spoke firmly. I don't care, she said. I'm willing to grow with him. I don't need a man to buy my life for me. I need a man who will stand with me. That statement alone shook some people, but Kelvin quickly drowned it with his voice. Okay, he said, clapping once. Let's do it like this since you people like talking about love and humility. He stepped forward, eyes sharp. My wedding car is expensive. My convoy outside is real. If you can bring a real convoy now, real cars, not borrowed nonsense, then I will leave. The crowd cheered because they believed this was the final nail. Yes, tell him. Let him bring it. Where will he see the convoy? Kelvin pointed at Daniel's friends. Those men dressed simply, standing quietly. Look at them, he mocked. Even his entourage looks like they came to borrow a chair. They are just forming big men. One of Daniel's friends, a tall man with calm eyes, stepped forward. His voice was polite, but it carried quiet power. Chairman, he said respectfully to Daniel, may I show them what we are capable of? The compound went silent again. People turned to look. Kelvin snorted. See acting, he muttered. Daniel's gaze stayed calm. Do it, he said simply. But don't scare the locals. The man nodded once. Then he took out his phone. He made one short call. No shouting, no begging, just one controlled sentence, and he ended the call. Kelvin burst into laughter. That's it, he shouted. You think a convoy is bread you order on the phone? Some people laughed with him, but before the laughter could finish settling, a low rumbling sound approached from a distance. At first it sounded like thunder. Then it became louder. Then the ground itself seemed to vibrate lightly. Heads turned toward the entrance. People stood up from their chairs. And then cars began to enter. Not one, not two, not five. A massive convoy rolled in like a wave. Luxury vehicles, polished bodies, heavy engines, tinted glass. The kind of cars people only see on television and quickly tell themselves that life is not for me. Somebody screamed, Jesus. Another person whispered, terrified, Why so many cars? A woman clutched her chest. Those are million-dollar cars. The compound panicked. Guests stepped backward instinctively. Even Mrs. Adams' mouth fell open. Kelvin's face went stiff, but he forced himself to laugh. "Calm down," he shouted. "It must be my father's friend coming." "Yes, it must be my father's friend. He said he would come to congratulate me." He adjusted his clothes quickly and began to walk toward the convoy with pride like the owner of the world. He marched up to the first car as if he were welcoming royalty. "Welcome, sir," Kelvin said loudly. "Are you my father's friend? My father is a—" Man stepped out, not young, not playful, a man with the kind of presence that silences rooms. Behind him, other men stepped out too, equally controlled, equally powerful, dressed simply but with an unmistakable air of wealth and authority. The first man looked at Kelvin like he was looking at a mosquito that had mistaken itself for an eagle. "What is your father's name?" the man asked. Kelvin smiled. "Call Boss Badelli," he said proudly. "Chief Badel." The man blinked once. Unimpressed. "Never heard of him," he said flatly. Kelvin's smile froze. "What?" The man stepped past him like Kelvin wasn't even standing there. Then he faced the compound. "We are here," he said plainly, "for Daniel Aki's wedding." A sharp wave of shock went through the crowd. Mrs. Admai staggered back slightly. "What?" Kelvin turned slowly, eyes wide. Felicia's breath caught. She stared at Daniel, confused, heart-pounding. Then the man who had stepped out of the car spoke again, louder this time, and some people suddenly recognized the face. "That man isn't that?" "Yes, that's him. A big man." The whispers turned into panic. The car mogul lifted his chin slightly, addressing the stunned crowd with calm respect. "I am Raymond Dessau," he said, "and I came because I couldn't miss Chairman Daniel Ai's introduction ceremony." People nearly stopped breathing. Kelvin's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mrs. Adam's knees almost gave way. Raymond A., one of the biggest names in the auto world, turned slightly and looked back toward Daniel with respect that felt unreal in such a small compound. Then he said the sentence that broke what was left of Kelvin's pride. "As for me," Raymond added, "I'm only a follower compared to Chairman Daniel." And that was when the crowd truly began to realize this was not a normal wedding. And Daniel was not who they thought he was. Rayon's words were still hanging in the air like thunder. "I'm only a follower compared to Chairman Daniel." The compound had gone quiet in a way that felt dangerous, like one wrong breath could break something. But Mrs. Adami did not move closer to humility. She moved deeper into stubbornness. "Lies," she snapped, her voice shaky but loud. "All these things are lies." Anita nodded quickly, clinging to her mother's denial like a lifeline. "It has to be lies," she said. "This is just drama movie." Jessica stepped forward with a smug smile, happy to give their disbelief a voice. "Exactly," she said, waving her phone. "It's acting, costumes, rentals. These people think once you wear a suit you become a boss." Some guests murmured in agreement, relieved to believe a simpler story than the truth. Jessica scoffed, pointing at the convoy. "Those cars are rentals. Car hire is everywhere. He probably scammed some people, go little or money, and decided to do this show to deceive you people." She turned and stared at Daniel, trying to shame him with her eyes. "Daniel, you are still the same, always trying to pretend." Kelvin's pride had taken too many hits already. His eyes were bloodshot with embarrassment. He couldn't allow the crowd to shift fully toward Daniel, not when he had already announced himself as the winner in front of everyone. So he did what desperate people do, he escalated. "Enough," Kelvin barked, forcing a laugh that didn't sound like laughter. He turned sharply toward one of his boys. "Call him now," he commanded. "Call my connection." A few seconds later, another car pulled into the compound, less flashy than the luxury convoy, but it carried confidence of a different kind. A man stepped out dressed in corporate clothing, moving like he owned the ground. He walked straight to Kelvin, nodded once, then faced the crowd. "My name is Samson Ume," he announced, "a senior executive in Dream Chasing Group." People gasped again. Mrs. Admai's eyes lit up. Anita smiled, Jessica's lips curled. Kelvin pointed at Felicia like he was reporting. "A criminal, this girl," he said, "is supporting this beggar and disrupting my wedding. She claims she works at Dream Chasing Group." Samson Ume turned to Felicia with a cold stare. "You," he said sharply, "you're too recruit, right?" Felicia's heart beat hard, but she didn't step back. "Yes," she said. He nodded like a judge. "You're still on probation," he said, voice loud. "You haven't even passed your first stage and you're here embarrassing yourself, supporting nonsense, supporting imposters." Felicia's eyes widened. "Sir, don't sir me." Samson cut in. "I can fire you right here, right now. You want to act brave? Let me show you what corporate power looks like." The compound buzzed again. Kelvin lifted his chin like victory had returned to him. But Felicia, shaken as she was, didn't move. She was shocked by everything happening. Her hands were trembling slightly, but she stood because even now the only thing she knew for sure was this. She had chosen Daniel when she thought he was nothing, and he refused to let fear make her betray that choice. "I'm not supporting injustice," Felicia said clearly. "I'm not disrespecting anyone. I'm only saying what is right." Samson laughed without humor. "Right?" he repeated. "You're teaching me right." Felicia swallowed, then continued. "Anyway, Dream Chasing Group has policies," she said. "Fair policies. That is why I wanted to work there. I've never met the chairman, but I know the company is known for fairness. The chairman is said to be upright. He would never support corruption or bullying." Samson's face hardened. "So because you heard stories, you think you can talk anyhow?" Felicia lifted her chin. "I'm saying I won't kneel to corruption," she replied. "Fire me if you want, but I won't lie." Mrs. Zade suddenly rushed forward, panic replacing pride. "Sir, please," she begged Samson. "She's young. She doesn't understand. Please don't ruin her job, please." Felicia turned quickly. "Mommy." "Don't beg him," she said, voice tight. "I didn't do anything wrong." Samson raised his hand, enjoying the power. "I will fire you publicly," he declared, "so that everyone will learn a lesson." He took out his phone like he was about to make a call, and that was when Daniel finally stepped forward, not rushing, not shouting wildly, just one step, calm, controlled. "How dare you fire her?" The words were quiet, but they landed like a slap. Samson paused mid-action. The compound froze. Even Kelvin's face went still. Samson turned sharply. "Who are you to question me?" he snapped. Daniel looked at him for one long second, then said, "Because you don't have that right." Silence. Then a nervous laugh from someone in the crowd. "Huh, see him." But the laugh died quickly because Daniel's assistant stepped forward with a slim file. Daniel collected it, opened it, and held it up. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to beg anyone to believe. He simply presented what could not be argued with. Documents, authorizations, company seal, identity verification, and a profile that matched what everybody in the corporate world already knew, even if they had never seen the face of the man behind it. The air shifted. Samson's mouth opened slightly. Raymond, Eza, and the other tycoons stood quietly behind Daniel, watching. Samson's confidence cracked. Someone whispered, "No." Someone else whispered, "Is it?" And then it burst out, "Chairman." "Is that the chairman, the founder?" Kelvin staggered back like someone had punched him in the chest. Mrs. Azadami's eyes rolled slightly as if her brain refused to accept what it was seeing. Anita's lips trembled. Jessica's face went pale. Felicia stood frozen, her eyes locked on Daniel's face like she was seeing him for the first time and yet somehow still seeing the same man. Samson's knees almost buckled. "Chairman," he stammered, voice suddenly small. I didn't know you were here." Daniel Unk's eyes stayed cold. "Of course you didn't," he said, "because if you knew, you wouldn't be behaving like a king among staff." Samson swallowed hard. "I was only trying to protect the company's reputation." Daniel cut him off. "You protect the company by abusing employees, by threatening people with firing like it's food you share." Samson's lips shook. "Chairman, please." Daniel's voice hardened. "You like firing people," he said. "So, let's do it properly." He looked at his assistant. "Prepare his resignation paperwork immediately." Samson's face collapsed. "No, Chairman, please." Daniel didn't blink. "You're fired," he said simply. "You will submit your resignation today. If you refuse, it will be announced publicly and your career will end in this industry." Samson's body went weak. He nodded rapidly. "Yes. Yes, Chairman." Then Daniel turned to Felicia. The whole compound held its breath. He reached for her hand slowly, gently, and held it in his. Felicia was speechless. Her throat tightened, tears gathered again, but this time they weren't only pain, they were shocked and relief. And the strange feeling of realizing your kindness has been seen. Daniel raised her hand slightly. From this moment, he announced, "Felicia Adame is the vice president of Dream Chasing Group." The compound erupted. "What? Vice president?" Just like that, Mrs. Admine nearly collapsed. Anita looked like she might faint. Kelvin's face twisted in disbelief and shame. Jessica's eyes widened as if her soul had left her body. Felicia stared at Daniel, barely breathing. "Daniel," she whispered. His eyes softened for the first time since he stepped forward. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, "for deceiving you." Felicia's lips parted, but no words came out. Daniel inhaled, then reached into his pocket and brought out a small box. He opened it. A diamond ring caught the light. A hush fell again, heavy, sacred. Daniel faced Felicia fully. "I disguised myself to test hearts," he said, voice low but clear. "To find the kind ones in a world full of noise. I didn't expect you." Felicia's tears spilled. "I'm sorry I met you like that," he continued, "but I'm grateful I met you at all." He held the ring up. "Felicia Addie, will you marry me?" Felicia's whole body shook. She covered her mouth, crying, then nodded quickly like she was afraid the moment would disappear. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Daniel." Daniel slid the ring onto her finger. The crowd was too stunned to speak properly. Daniel looked around then, not as a beggar, not as a groom begging for approval, but as the man who had built an empire and still valued kindness more than anything. He spoke calmly, like he was reminding the world of something it had forgotten. "Dream Chasing Group exists for one purpose," he said, "to find kind people in the crowd and help them achieve their dreams." His eyes returned to Felicia. "Your kindness," he said gently, "people still exist." And as Felicia cried quietly beside him, holding his hand, it was clear to everyone. The real bride price here wasn't money, it was character. The compound was still spinning from shock. People were still whispering, "Chairman, chairman," like the word itself was a prayer they didn't know they could say. Felicia stood beside Daniel, her fingers trembling around his hand, the diamond ring catching light like it was insisting this was real. Daniel slowly turned his attention away from the crying and shouting crowd and faced Kelvin. Kelvin looked like a man whose soul had been slapped out of his body. The arrogance that entered the compound with him had cracked, but he was still trying to hold on to pride like a drowning man clinging to a plank. Daniel's voice was calm. "Kelvin," he said, "you came here today with force in your heart." Kelvin's jaw tightened. "Chairman or not," he tried, "you can't." Daniel cut him off with one sentence. "You tried to grab a bride-like property." The crowd fell quiet again. Daniel's eyes moved to Chief Badal, Kelvin's father, who had arrived earlier shouting orders, acting like he owned the village and everyone in it. "You," Daniel said, voice steady, "raised a son to believe money excuses. His lawlessness." Chief Badal tried to speak, but the words got stuck in his throat when another sound entered the compound. Sirens. At first, people thought it was just more cars from the convoy. Then the sirens got louder and a police vehicle pulled in, followed by two more men in uniform stepped out. Their faces were not smiling. Their posture was not playful. The murmuring rose like wind. "What is this, police? Why police?" One officer walked forward with a file in his hand. He looked around once, then fixed his eyes on Kelvin. "Kelvin Badal," the officer called, "you are under arrest." The compound exploded. Kelvin's eyes widened. "What nonsense is this? Arrest for what?" "For fraud," the officer said plainly. "And money laundering." Chief Badal stumbled forward. "Are you mad?" he barked. "Do you know who my son is?" The officer didn't blink. "Yes," he said, "that is why we are here." Kelvin stepped back, shaking his head. "No, no, this is a setup." Daniel's assistant calmly stepped forward and handed another file to the officers. Daniel spoke without raising his voice. "Provide them everything," he said. "Every document, every trail, every account movement." Kelvin's knees weakened, his mouth opened, but the confidence was gone now completely. The officers moved in. Kelvin tried to resist. "Don't touch me. Do you know who I am?" One officer grabbed his wrist firmly. "We know," he said. "Walk." Chief Badal turned wild. "Daniel, chairman, please. This is a misunderstanding." Daniel's face did not soften. He gave quiet instructions like a man signing papers. "Block Chief Badal's business dealings," he said. "Drive them out of the industry. Assist the financial crime unit with all evidence." The words landed like judgment. Kelvin's boys who came with him and began to scatter like rats. The guests who were praising him earlier suddenly looked at their phones and pretended they didn't know him. And Kelvin was led away, his shoulders slumped, his face drained. Just as he passed the middle of the compound, he turned back once, eyes burning with humiliation. But the crowd didn't pity him. Not after what they saw, not after how he tried to force Felicia. Mrs. Adami stood frozen. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. Anita's eyes were wide, darting, calculating, already searching for a new angle. Then the shock finished cooking in their bodies and turned into something else. Greed. Mrs. Adami rushed forward suddenly, hands raised like she was greeting royalty. "My son-in-law," she cried. "Ah, I knew you were the right one for my daughter, I knew it." Anita quickly joined, forcing a sweet smile. "Yes, brother-in-law, please don't mind how everything happened. Family is family." Daniel didn't even look moved. He glanced at them once cold, clear, and said, "You don't owe me anything, and I don't owe you anything." He turned slightly and faced Felicia. "If you want to speak," he said calmly, "speak to your daughter. She is my wife." The word stung Mrs. Adami like a slap because it was the truth. It wasn't Daniel they had wronged the most. It was Felicia. Felicia swallowed hard, her chest tight. She looked at her mother, the same mother who tried to disgrace her in public, who broke her phone, who lied, who almost handed her life to a man like Kelvin. She could have shouted. She could have embarrassed them back. But Felicia's power was different. She stepped forward and spoke quietly but with strength. "Mommy," she said, "I will still support you." Mrs. Adami's eyes brightened immediately. "Hey, my daughter." Felicia raised her hand gently. "But listen to me," she said, voice firmer now. "Never be wicked again." The compound went still. Felicia continued, looking directly at her mother and sister. "You judged a man by appearances," she said. "You called him less than human because you thought he was poor. You were ready to throw away my happiness just so people won't gossip." Mrs. Adami tried to talk. "It was for your good." Felicia shook her head. "No," she said, "it was for your pride." Then she looked around at the guests, at Cynthia and her friends, at Jessica, at the people who laughed earlier. "Even if someone is poor," Felicia said, "it doesn't make them less human. It doesn't mean they are not deserving of love." Her eyes shone with tears, but her voice didn't shake. "Wealth follows character," she said. "It can't be forced, it can't be grabbed, it can't be stolen. You can't insult your way into blessings." Mrs. Adami's face dropped. Anita looked away, swallowing shame. Daniel stepped closer and gently held Felicia's hand again. "We'll continue the wedding preparations," Daniel said calmly, and this time nobody argued because the air had changed. The wicked had been exposed. The kind had been crowned. The wedding wasn't held in that compound again. It moved to a grand hall, bright lights, endless flowers, cameras, soft music, and a level of luxury the village gossipers couldn't even describe properly. Tycoons arrived quietly just as they promised, dressed ordinary, but their presence still carried weight. Men whose names could shake industries sat among regular guests, smiling like proud uncles. In the back row, Cynthia sat stiffly with her friends. Jessica sat with her eyes fixed on the front, her face pale, her throat tight. She had mocked him on the street. She had played the video. She had laughed at him like he was nothing. Now she watched Felicia step out. Felicia looked like a queen. A luxurious gown flowed behind her like water. A big diamond crown rested on her head, sparkling under the lights like daylight trapped in stones. The hall gasped. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Not soft tears, bitter tears. The kind of tears that come when you finally understand the weight of what you threw away. Felicia walked slowly, graceful, her eyes shining, her hands steady. Daniel stood at the front in a clean suit, looking at her like he still couldn't believe the world gave him someone so pure. When she reached him, he held her hands and he spoke. Simple, honest, deep. "I tested the world," Daniel said, voice carrying through the hall, "and the world failed in many ways, but you didn't." Felicia's tears fell again. Daniel smiled softly. "You loved me when you thought I was nothing," he said. "So now with everything I have, I give it to you freely." They exchanged vows. The crowd clapped, cried, and cheered. "Kiss, kiss, kiss." The chant grew louder until the whole hall was demanding it. Daniel and Felicia looked at each other for a second like two people remembering every insult, every test, every moment that brought them here. Then Daniel pulled her close and he kissed her. Not a small peck. A real kiss full of love, full of victory, full of "we made it." The hall erupted, and in the back row, Cynthia swallowed regret like bitter medicine. Jessica covered her mouth and cried harder because now she understood. Some doors don't reopen. Daniel's voice rose one last time, not as an announcement, more like a lesson. People who chase money often miss it, he said, because money cannot recognize a wicked heart. He looked at Felicia, then at the crowd. Kindness, he said, is the true wealth. And everyone knew the truth. Felicia didn't win Daniel because she chased riches. She won him because she chose character when it looked like she would gain nothing. And that was why she got the best man and the happiest ending.